Welcome to the Craft and Biz of Acting, the place to go to learn what they didn't teach you in acting school. When you're looking for the next step in your acting career, we've got you covered. With your host, monologue expert and founder of monologues2go.com, Joyce Story.
Hello, fellow thespians. You are listening to The Craft and Biz of Acting. I'm your host, Joyce Story, and we're here to explore the nuts and bolts of auditioning and performing. Today, I have the pleasure of visiting with not one but two guests. Ishan Edwards and Drego Moore are two of the most collaborative and giving people in the industry. Together, they launched the Monolodge in 2011 and haven't looked back since. The Monolodge is a live theater experience showcasing actors performing monologues in a nightclub lounge for an audience of actors and professionals in New York City. A grassroots movement, Monolodge is an arts initiative that follows its own instincts, living, breathing, and sharing a pulse with the actors at the heart of the city in which it was born. It exists in service to the craft of acting and as an entertainment experience for audiences of all ages, cultures, and interests. It endeavors to be an effective partner, educational tool, and change agent. At Monolodge, the actor is at home to work on their craft and share their individual talents in a safe space, connecting with an audience free and harsh of judgment and negative critique. You can learn more about Monolodge at monologues.com. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Appreciate you. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you guys too. I wanted to tell our audience the way we met was the two of you took the initiative to reach out to me. You found Monologues to Go, my website, and you reached out to say, hey, we'd love to collaborate with you. We're not sure what that looks like or what that means, but why don't we get together and have a chat? And I just love that. I just thought these guys are really creating something and being open enough to not worry about what that something is or becomes. Tell me about what that something is and what that something has become for you.
You know, in a word, I would say community. It starts with the idea that we could be of service to others, particularly actors and people in the theater community, and create a space where everyone could collaborate and share their talents, share their interests, share their ambitions, and fellowship and grow as a community.
And so how have you manifested that? Drego, what did you do when you first started?
Well, we got together and really it started with an idea that, like Ishan said, we could be of service to the acting community. I was partaking in acting classes. And so I knew a lot of actors having a background in musical theater, going to performing arts high school, and there was not any place that I could easily identify in which actors could express themselves in a safe, non-judgmental arena. So I had been to a few monologue slams where there's judging and there's, competition, but never a place that I find in other disciplines of the arts where there's, if you're a comedian, there's so many places for comics to hone their individual talent. If you're a musician, there's so many jam sessions and places where you can play and gig. And if you are a dancer, there's so many clubs that host different forms and genres of music. And so as for the actor, where does he or she go to express themselves when they're not auditioning or not in a class or in a play or film? And most actors that I knew spent more time auditioning and looking for work than actually being locked into a project. And so there's all of this time where the actor has to try to figure out, where's my next gig? What am I going to audition for? But then no real place where they could go to express themselves as an individual.
Right.
Not having to have a scene partner, not having to be in a play, but just to perform without everything else. And so we stripped it down, and obviously the monologue is the best tool for the actor to express themselves individually, away from cast and type, and you can do any monologue you want. And,
right.
And so that's kind of where we started, and we really didn't know how it would develop moving forward, but we called some acting friends and put a show together and wanted to see what it felt like.
And it's a great show. And you did it downtown in a nightclub. And when I was there, you would have hundreds of people show up. That's an amazing feat in New York City. I've been to so many showcases where there would be 6 people in the audience, 10 people in the audience, 4 people in the audience. You fill the house. That's really a testament to the two of you and your marketing ability. I mean, really, that's something. Before we started the show, Ishan, you and I were speaking, and I want to talk about how the two of you met, and you said you meet in the marketing world.
Well, he and I meet personally in Harlem as children. Growing up in Boys Harbor, founded by Tony Duke, it was this haven for East Harlem kids where you can go and just kind of fully express yourself in all of your interests. So there was swimming, there was basketball, there was SAT prep, there was lunch if you needed it. It was just a place where we could go and be safe from the outside world, as it was a pretty tough environment when we were growing up. And that's where he and I met. Our professional intersection is experiential marketing, where we had begun working with brands, and that's the crossroads where Monolodge was formed. It comes from him being an actor and us working in experiential marketing at the same time.
And you are not an actor. You
No.
actually live in the real world.
I do. And that was another piece of it, was creating the worlds in which we wanted to be in. Right, creating something that we wanted to go to and attend and have it be something that was organic and authentic and even casual, so that it would be open to people who are not initiated to the craft. I love theater. I was introduced to it as a kid, and we didn't have much access. And I thought that was important as we move forward, to create something where people could have access to it.
So you said you started it because you knew all these actors that didn't have a platform or a place to sort of flex their muscles. And you created this forum, and you created it with a sense of community and a sense of developing their work. The very first night that I went, there was a woman who was developing a piece, and she was doing scenes that were progressive, or I don't think they were even necessarily related to each other, but I picked her up as a writer. She's one of my writers now for Monologues to Go. Jessie, yes. We love Jessie. Shout out to Jessie.
Jessie.
But I was really impressed with the diverse group of people that you had there. The types of work that they were bringing were sort of all over the map. And you, Drego, were always the MC, and you were hosting it, and you were making it fun, and you have these kind of like game type things. Tell me where you started, because I want to talk too about the education part that you've evolved into. But tell me how the show evolved. Tell me what happens when you go to a show.
Well, I guess that's a two-part question. And so the show evolved, if I could piggyback right on what he said, we kind of came from these similar worlds, but he really represented the audience. And I think I kind of represented the thespian culture. And so we'd have these conversations on, as an audience member, what would you like to see? What would you like to discover if you attended an event like this? And for me, it's, well, hey, as an actor, what would they enjoy? Right, and so it kind of meshed in that way. So initially there was just the monologue and Q&A that followed every monologue, where the audience was able to ask the actor questions in the moment. What made you choose that monologue? Who are some of your biggest influences in the craft? Where are you studying now? Where can we find you? And so that was something that I think a lot of audience members may have those thoughts while they're watching a show or a play, to really engage with the actor live in the moment. And for the actor, we rarely get instant gratification, right? If we're on set, we film something, it comes out a year later, we're not in the audience to really feel the warmth, to see how people are, if they're laughing, if they're crying, to see the movement and the overall feel of what we're doing. And so the actor really gains a lot from that Q&A moment, to see what the audience is thinking. And it's not just questions, it's actually great feedback. Like, we've had people in the audience cry and reflect, and wow, that piece reminded me of my mom. And so you kind of get this back and forth interaction between the actor and audience, which usually never happens. You know, usually if I finish a play, I go backstage, I get dressed, 2 or 3 people who have come to see me, I meet them and, somewhere, and we leave. But I don't really get the audience's feel and take on what I just did. And I think it does matter to a lot of actors as they're progressing in their craft. And so that's really where the show started. The actor performing, Q&A with the audience, bringing the audience closer to the craft of acting. I think a bit of why there's such a diverse crowd, in a sense, is that usually when people think of theater, it doesn't entice them or it doesn't evoke action. right? To always want to go purchase a ticket. And so by taking a bit of the craft out of the traditional theatrical settings and putting it in nightlife, well, now a lot of people will go to a lounge. And so they're not really opposed to watching some monologues and seeing acting taken out of context. Most of the audience early on would always say, I've never seen a monologue.
Really?
And if you think about it, if you are consciously seeing one, right? Because they've seen them in plays and films,
right,
but out of context. Unless you're in a class or at an audition, where would you see someone?
Where would you see one?
So it became, really, you've never seen one? And people are like, no, I've never seen that. Where someone is having a drink, excuse me for a second, they get on stage, turn into Othello from Shakespeare, and then sit back down. So I think we found a lot of fun there. That's really where it started, and it progressed in terms of, he would have some ideas in terms of how do we get more engagement from the audience. And so then we kind of morphed into like the trivia, where we would ask questions surrounding the craft and surrounding film and television and trivia as it related to the acting community. And the audience seemed to really enjoy it. Most people love acting. In fact, I would say everyone loves acting, even more so than the shows you see on TV now.
Loves to act or loves observing acting? Or both?
That's a great question. I would say everyone loves to observe it, right? Hence television, film, theater for some. But I would push and say that many of us are actors, even if we are not conscious of it. On a basic level, we usually act, I tell my students, we act differently in front of our parents, as we do in front of our friends and teachers. And they're not conscious of it, but as we dig into things like subtext and they realize, wow, I do move differently here. I speak to my mom differently than I do my friends when I'm outside. And so you're actually unconsciously acting.
Right.
So that's where it started. I'm sorry, I was long-winded.
No,
one of the things that I love is that your audience they're real world people. A lot of them are not in the industry. It's not like you have your 6 friends that came to see you who are also actors, you go to their showcase, they go to yours, which is great. I mean, that's a great seed, and it's great to be supportive of each other in the community. But you have people that come who, like you say, they've never seen a monologue before. They've never experienced something like this. How did you go about doing that?
As a concept, we wanted to make theater accessible to everyone, because particularly my experience not having access to it the way I would have liked as a young person. So I might have seen maybe 3 or 4 plays by the time I was 18, right? And then many more once I was able to take myself. But I realized that a lot of people don't have access to theater and are not initiated to the craft, and thereby don't have an opportunity to enjoy it. So we found a way to create it in an environment that was familiar to people, and they could come and passively enjoy it. They can enjoy 1 monologue, 2 monologues, and go home. They can enjoy a meal, they can enjoy cocktails during, and they could actually learn about the artist's process and kind of close the gap in education. And then create some fun moments. So that way they could have a great time, get initiated to the craft, understand the process.
So you're almost giving them a backstage tour, a little sneak peek into that world.
Absolutely. We tried to make it as engaging as we could for the audience. Like you said, that was the duality. There's service to the actors on stage, and then there's service to the audience in educating them and entertaining them in a way that kind of makes sense for them as passive theater goers or non-theater goers.
Who have you partnered with, or how have you made that vision work?
That's kind of Ishan's brainchild. We've partnered with film festivals. We've partnered with schools. We have partnered with small community-based organizations. We've partnered with senior citizen homes. We've partnered with boys and girls clubs. We've really tried to bring the experience to the community. We partnered with up-and-coming shorts, up-and-coming playwrights, anyone who's willing to engage. I think it was important for us to have a place that was somewhat reflective of what New York City looks like, or at least what it looked like for me growing up. And so I was able to experience Harlem, experience Columbia University, experience downtown and parts of Brooklyn and Queens. And so for us, really making something that our parents could come to, our grandparents, and then our friends and those even younger than us, and that everyone could have a similar or an enjoyable experience in the same place. I think that was something that the Wall Street Journal had highlighted in an interview. They wanted to know, why were there all of these different age demographics in the same place? And it's rare in the city. It's rare you can go to any club, I would say, and find someone in their 80s and in their 20s having a drink, having a bite to eat, all together for any common cause, let alone acting.
Right.
You know, so.
And you've gotten a lot of great press. I mean, you've gotten really mainstream press.
We've been fortunate. People sense that we are genuine in our service to people, and that has been the catalyst for the interest. Pretty much everybody we come in contact with has spoken fondly of what it is that we're doing, and that has just kind of resonated with people, and we've been fortunate to get some really, really great press. I also find that a lot of people don't support actors on the way up the way you think they might. That was a lesson that I learned early on. I'm just kind of like, so where's your mother, right? Where's your significant other? Why aren't at least a few people here to support you in your endeavors? I mean, I kind of get it. If you're not in something major, then people kind of don't know what you're doing, or if what you're doing is fruitful or worthwhile. So that was kind of like, my education as well, just learning how little support there is for this community. And that informed what Monolodge was to become. It was to become that home, that lodge, right? Like where they can come and feel like they're part of a family and feel like they're part of a group and be valued and welcomed and protected.
Protected, I love that. On that note, we're going to take a break and hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
Looking for the perfect monologue that will nail your next audition? Need something right away? Need a fresh perspective? Monologues2go.com is your one-stop shop for audition material. We understand actors' needs because we've been in your shoes. We know the importance of finding the perfect piece that fits like it was made for you. Pick your favorite monologues and download them instantly. It's that easy. Think of us like a takeout menu, only a whole lot more fun. We're fresh, fast, hot, and delivered to you in seconds. Monologues2go.com. Original monologues that work.
And we are back with Ishan Edwards and Drego Moore, and we are talking about the Monolodge, and I wanted to get into the education aspect. You've really evolved and moved a lot into education and done some wonderful things. Drego, you mentioned that you have a class that you teach in Midtown?
Actually, in the Bronx.
In the Bronx?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have several classes. We call it Monolodge, which is the youth component of our Monolodge endeavors.
So what happens at Monolodge? How do I sign up for Monolodge?
Well, you might be a little too tall.
Oh, bummer.
Monolodge essentially is monologues, right? It's that experience where we go into the classroom setting and we educate the youth and introduce them to some of the core values and principles of acting. However, as much as I am focused on the enrichment of the craft for young people, there is a parallel curriculum that's happening. We are literally, I call it on stage, off stage. So our off stage curriculum, though they are learning stage direction, blocking, they're learning about subtext, the fourth wall, and all these great things that young people may not know about being introduced to the craft. They are also learning about self-esteem, anti-bullying. We kind of infuse job readiness. We infuse different things into the curriculum that they can take with them throughout life. So public speaking and really breaking those things down for them, but using the craft of acting. So many of our young people that we've come across in the past 5 years didn't have a comfort level with reading in front of the class. And so if through the lens of acting, we can get them engaging in dialogue through scripts, monologues, and having the courage to get on stage and perform, there's a direct connection with that and their ability to be comfortable with their own voice. And so our job is really to help every young person find their voice, find their self-confidence, build up their self-esteem, focus on things that kids are dealing with in terms of bullying, anti-drugs. We really touch a lot of different things all through the lens of acting. And so though it is important for them to learn how to act, and some of them now are auditioning for specialized high schools, and some have gotten in, and so that's a great story. And that might be 1 out of every 15 kids. But far more important that these kids take these tools with them that they've learned that will hopefully stay with them throughout life, right? And that ability to stand in front of a room and be confident, hold your head up high, and they can learn. I learned so much of that through acting. If you can get in front of your peers and talk and make a fool of yourself and have fun and take on these characters that are larger than life sometimes, you're definitely ready for the world at large.
It's more about life skills.
Yes, ma'am.
And poise and confidence and
working together, being a part of an ensemble, which helps just in life. A lot of them go to school every day, but there's no team building exercises in a classroom, right? You just kind of go in, you learn or not, you leave. So our goal is to really have them slightly grow accustomed to what it's like to work together, to work on a scene together. It's not good enough if you know your lines and they don't, right? You guys have to come together. Let's all get off book together. Let's learn other people's lines so we can kind of help in that process. And so for that, it's been a remarkable ride thus far. It is intro to dramatic arts, but the life skills portion I refer to as our offstage curriculum. And I tell the schools, they'll learn the basic principles of acting, but so many of our students have trouble reading. And so when I find that, hey, this person isn't reading on this level, that they can't engage in the script, well then we try to get tutoring and things to kind of build them up. So it's not about the script, it's really about, are they prepared to actually progress in school and really do their work at an optimum level.
And so you're improving their reading skills on top of everything else.
Definitely.
In a fun and engaging way.
They don't look at it as work, which is...
Perfect.
Yes.
Do they write their own material, or do you bring in material for them, or both?
Both. We have weeks where we encourage free writing. There's a piece now that we're looking to develop, which 8th grader wrote as a period piece, and it actually deals with women's suffrage of all things.
Really?
Yes. It's probably my favorite piece thus far in the past few years. I'm eager to see how that develops. She's never written anything before, and it's amazing.
Interesting that an 8th grader would be interested in suffrage. I mean, a lot of people are going to have to go to their dictionaries, their little google.com, and find out what suffrage means. But that was when women were really fighting for the right to vote. That was the beginning of the women's movement for equality. Go girl. I don't even know her.
Her name is Ramirez, I will say that. And
Ramirez?
she is an amazingly talented actor, but I was impressed by her writing.
And you're giving it a platform.
Yes.
Which is fabulous. You never know when you give someone a platform where that will lead them. That could be the seed that really informs a lot of her future life.
That is the hope.
Absolutely. I think that's what brought us to this point. Because we can look back at the tons of mentors and influences that we've had, people who put a hand on our shoulders that got us here. And we wanted to be able to pay that forward. So that really feels good.
Very nice. We spoke before the podcast about you've sort of shifted your focus more towards the students. Are you also doing performances, sponsoring people's work? Where has the overall picture of Monolodge gone to at this point?
We've done everything that we can to kind of expand into different areas. So one-person shows, education, event sponsorships, and event branding and alignment. We're really just looking at all of the categories in which we can kind of be more impactful and more effective in creating opportunities for others as well as ourselves.
And how have you gotten into the schools? How did you approach schools? Are you part of an artist in the school program? Is it after school? Is it during school?
Much of it is after school. Funny enough, I taught science elementary school.
Really?
Many years ago, before you were born.
Bless you. It's dark in here, you can't tell. I love it.
So that was my first involvement with the school systems and the difference between progressive education versus what's a bit more traditional education. And so when the opportunity came up to work in the school system, we obviously seized it. And after school programming, we've had relationships through our event marketing, dealing with Boys and Girls Clubs, DYCD, ACS programming. And so there was an ask and an opportunity to come into the schools really from a mentorship standpoint originally. And we offered dramatic arts to the director. And they actually came to a Monolodge show in 2011 and said, "This is great. I wish you guys were doing something like this for kids." We can. And hence, from there, we started there.
Fantastic.
So.
I love those kind of stories. I used to teach too. I come from a teaching background.
Is that right?
Back before you were born.
Touché.
I used to teach. I started in elementary music and phys ed. I moved
Really?
into high school music first and then high school theater. And I ended up teaching in a fine arts school. While I was teaching, I was performing as well. I would leave right from school and go right to the dinner theater, spend my entire weekend doing dinner theater. I did fringe festivals in the summer.
Where?
In Canada. I lived way up north in a mining town when I first started. And then I moved, quote unquote, south, 500 miles due south to Winnipeg. I've met so many of my dear, dear friends during that time in my life. And a lot of them come to New York now on various projects. I have a girlfriend, actually, I taught with her. She was my choreographer for a lot of my shows in Winnipeg. She's since moved to Santa Fe. She's a professional actress and writer. She now runs her own theater company in Santa Fe, and she's coming here to do a show. And we wrote a book called 75 New Monologues Kids Will Love. And I think it'd be great for your kids. So I'm going to give you a copy.
Wow.
And I think you'd find some great material in there. And she's one of my Monologues to Go writers. So a lot of those people from the teaching community who've crossed over into the professional world have been a great resource, I think, for young actors or young students, because they really get the pedagogy part and they get the performance part. And it's a great marriage and meeting of that creativity.
I'm still blown away that you've written 75 monologues for kids.
Yes.
That's outstanding.
It was such fun. It was the most fun project, both of us keep saying, because getting in the mindset of a child is just so much fun. And when I was writing it, for my part, I'm no longer really connected with kids on a daily basis. I don't have little kids of my own. Everybody's grown. So I would follow kids around. If I was at the New York Botanical Garden, I remember listening to these kids, and they were looking at the koi fish in the pond, and I just mentally took notes. Or sometimes I actually get out my phone and I started to write down as much as I can, and then I write the monologue. And it's just fun living in that fresh, exciting world that kids live in. I think it freshens all of us up to be around that kind of energy.
We talk a lot about creating audiences, future audiences as well, with these introduction to theater classes, right? If you're not going to go on to be a thespian, you have an experience or a frame of reference for what it's like to be in a theater and attend a show, and the etiquette and everything that kind of goes hand in hand with that world. And we think that that's important as well, maybe equally as important as future actors need audiences to perform for.
You're also helping the off-Broadway show, because off-Broadway struggles to get audiences often. So you're doing a double service. You take for granted that kids are exposed to theater often, but they're not. The etiquette of sitting in a theater and the excitement, especially if you're in a Broadway house, the opulence of that beautiful place that you're being surrounded by. But even if it's a black box theater, there's just an energy in that room and an excitement. And they do become better people from having those kind of experiences, I think.
I think it raises the bar on the talent that's on stage. I think when the audience can appreciate good theater, or has an, at least an, even if it's an untrained eye for what's appropriate behavior in the audience, and they know what they're looking for in terms of performances, like, wow, I could connect with this person's objectives. I really felt it will undoubtedly raise the level of performance, I think.
Plus, the untrained eye is an honest eye.
Always.
It really is. And it is a symbiotic relationship between the actors on stage and the audience. And it's very rewarding, as you know, as an actor, to have an audience appreciate your work and what you've brought to them, and to be able to move people. And from the point of being in an audience, to be moved is really a very special moment in your life. And if you're offering that to students, that can really impact them and the choices they make in their future. You guys grew up in Harlem when Harlem was, it was kind of rough. And to recognize that and to want to do something about that, to give back to your community and to maybe give up-and-coming new generation the gift of what you didn't have is really special.
In our small way, right? I think we'd love to give back even more, and we do in different ways, but this is just kind of one of them.
You never know what's that one seed that really germinates.
I always say if we can spark one mind, at a time, our job is done.
I just want to loop back to periodically you're going into the nightclub or the performance with various artists that are on your roster?
Yes, on and off of the roster. We're always looking for new, exciting talent that we've never met before to perform. We have a showcase in a few weeks. And so, yes, Monolodge is still active. And, we've obviously diverted a bit of our attention to the youth component of Monolodge, but we're still active and vibrant.
If somebody is an actor and is hearing this and is in New York, how do they reach you? Can they go on your website and reach out to you and say, hey, I would love to work with you, or I would love to develop material? How does that happen?
There's a contact page on the website, monologues.com. We try to respond within 24 to 48 hours. Typically, they would send us a headshot and a resume and a bio, and then we would call them for an audition and get a feel for who they are as an artist and what it is that they want to accomplish overall in their career or in their artistry. And then we look to provide the appropriate opportunity. Sometimes it's performance in a showcase, sometimes it's a solo show, sometimes it's even a teaching opportunity. So we really try to work with artists at multiple levels to figure out what it is, what the goals are that they want to reach. So, but yeah, they can reach out to us directly through the website. Myself or Drego will respond personally, usually.
That's fabulous. Well, I thank you both for coming and visiting us today. I thank you for reaching out to me in the first place. It's several years now since we've been back and forth and looking at where we can collaborate. And today I think we found a place that we really can collaborate. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And I really thank you for the platform that you are providing for both professional actors and for students and helping them to be better people. That's fantastic.
If I can, before we close out, I wanted to invite you and Monologues to go to, we would love to have you come out and maybe speak to the kids about what you do.
I would love to.
You know, I think that would be outstanding. Many of them have never written a monologue. A few of them are working on some now. But to meet someone who not only is an actor, who has written monologues, that might be very inspiring to a lot of young people who are looking to write and looking on ways to be stimulated. Wow, that's an actual job for me, right? I can actually write monologues. You know, you never know who you might inspire to write the next film or the next play.
Right.
But starting with the monologue.
Well, it's a date. I would love to do that.
And we want to thank you also for being so open and warm. It really has been a pleasure to get to know you, and it's a pleasure to be here as well.
You have been listening to Ishan Edwards and Drego Moore. This is The Craft and Biz of Acting. I'm Joyce Story, and until next time, break a leg.
Thanks for tuning in to The Craft and Biz of Acting. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and while you're at it, please leave us a rating and a review and share our show with your friends. We're building a supportive and educational community, and we want you to be a part of it. Tune in every week for more helpful insights and tools for honing your craft and booking your next gig. Until next time, break a leg.